Recently, the Roblox Innovation Awards went live, and with this event comes some tight competition. Today, I'm going to break down the best horror game nominees: The Mimic, Piggy, Interliminality, and Doors. This is probably the most contested category in the event, and likewise requires a full breakdown of what each game is about. I've fully played all of these games through and know their style well. Keep in mind that all I'm doing is clarifying what each game is about and their strengths and weaknesses. At the end of this video, I'll give you my opinion. Keep in mind, my opinion can be different than yours, and variety in opinion allows us all to gain a wider perspective. Without further ado, let's get into it. The Mimic has almost finished 2 books worth of 4 chapters respectively, and has proven that it is capable of incredible visuals and unique gameplay. Recent chapters have shown these qualities, and they have intensified with each coming chapter. For example, the most recent chapter has a unique RNG mechanic with the sticks and torches, and has an incredible unique atmosphere taking place in a hellscape. Despite the first parts of this chapter being the traditional red landscape of hellscapes, the environment becomes very different, with each descending layer being less and less like a stereotypical hell. This is also a very interconnecting chapter as well, connecting Control's book, Book 1, to Jealousy's book, Book 2, with Shinigami, basically the devil in the Mimic universe, making a reprise from the secret event Jikoku in Control Chapter 1. This chapter also showed the impressive storytelling skills of CT Studios, with the infamous father part being the area where the main protagonist's relationships with his family members are fully explored. The Mimic does have some downfalls though. Since it's a player versus environment game, you can't have a thrilling and varied experience with other players each time you replay a chapter. This doesn't make the game bad, but just makes it not that replayable. The coin system introduced in Jealousy Chapter 2 does lighten this issue, but it doesn't fix it. This issue cannot be fixed, sadly, because the entire foundation of the game is built on this issue. It's basically the only weakness that the Mimic has, but it has a huge impact on the game's success over time, especially with the long amounts of time without content updates in the game. CT Studios' upcoming game Yokai may fix these issues, but sadly it cannot take the Mimic's place in this year's nominees. Hopefully Yokai will be nominated next year, since it would fix all the issues that the Mimic has. Piggy has finished 2 books with 12 main chapters in each book. Each book, however, also has their own character-focused chapters. Book 1 has Distorted Memory, a chapter based on Chapter 1 of Book 1, and Book 2 has Heist, a chapter based on Chapter 1 of Book 2, Distraction, a chapter based on Chapter 3 of Book 2, Breakout, a unique chapter based on the character of Tigray, and Mansion, a unique Halloween-themed chapter. The biggest strength of Piggy is its gameplay loop. Since it's a player versus player game, you can have very unique gameplay based on what game mode you are playing. This makes Piggy very replayable because you know that your next round could be vastly different in how you play than the last round, and the varied maps intensify this. The latest chapters, though, are more bot-oriented, with Breakout being exclusively a bot mode. Despite this seeming to take away from the chapter, the bot for the chapter is always moving and teleporting to different places on the map, making you be on the edge of your seat, despite the mode never changing. The latest chapter, Mansion, is incredibly immersive. This chapter's bot also has a unique mechanic of being faster than you, only moving if you look away or at it depending on its changing faces. This incentivizes avoiding the bot and makes the close encounters with it greatly terrifying. However, a huge issue with Piggy is how gameplay focused it is. It really takes away from most of the horror aspect from the game. Sure, it can be scary on the first few rounds that you play, but by the time you play about 5 rounds, you're desensitized to it, and all that remains is its thrill. This is the main issue Piggy has, but it has been getting better over time, with each new chapter being more and more horrifying. This issue will always remain though. Interliminality is a game based off the concept of the backrooms and has 3 unique episodes released. This game is easy to pick up and has some interesting puzzles. The latest chapter, for example, episode 3, has a puzzle that includes several pairs of computers scattered across a maze, with the number on one computer used to match with the other computer. This may be simple, but it's easy enough to understand that it isn't frustrating, but complex enough that it isn't just a simple puzzle that isn't even fun to complete. However, this game suffers from its lack of depth. The baseline story is very simple compared to the Mimic and Piggy, and it sometimes makes the settings you explore feel pointless and lifeless. They're unique, but they feel very shallow. This game is a game that shines with its gameplay, but has very little depth beyond that. This game is the nominee with the least content as well, so it struggles to stand up against its competition. Doors is a game that has had critical acclaim, and it's obvious why. This game added a spice to the horror genre on Roblox that wasn't there before, with its simple yet engaging gameplay loop, having each round be unique to the last. Doors has in fact become even more engaging since the hotel revamp, and its difficulty has increased tenfold. This makes the eventual finish of one round to the final door feel very rewarding. Doors is probably one of the most satisfying games to finish, but how does it feel to play? Well, it feels pretty grating. The theme gets very old after a couple of rounds, making the 100-door gameplay loop feel boring. The rooms suffer from not being that varied, with there only being around 10 unique rooms, excluding the seek chases and the figure rooms, being climaxes within the gameplay. While these rooms feel pretty interesting throughout your first few rounds, they become increasingly repetitive as you play more and more, which is an issue when the random spawning of rooms is meant to make the game unpredictable, when in fact it becomes more predictable. The issue has mainly been caused by the long wait for floor 2, only leaving floor 1 as basically the only option to play, making each room more and more boring and repetitive. This issue can be nullified in the future release of more floors with unique theming, but floor 1 in the Hunt event is all that we have to compare to the other nominees this year. The competition is stacked, and making a decision is very difficult. So, the best way to go about this voting for this category is to see each of the game's strengths and weaknesses, and how they hold up against each other. To start, Interliminality is the game with the least content, and has little to prove why it should earn my vote in this category. Next up, we have the Mimic. While I love this game to death, and I've played it to death, there's only so much before it gets all dull. I feel burnt out after playing this game after a long period of time, as a month or so it's a hard decision for me. Now, it's between two of the biggest games on the Roblox platform, Doors and Piggy. Doors is a very engaging and exciting game to play the first couple of times, and has the most satisfying ending to its game. However, this finale cannot save the game's downfalls when it comes to how dull it gets going through the whole game, and the theme of floor 1 doesn't help the dullness. Piggy is a very unique game, on the other hand, compared to the nominees, with its gameplay loop being players against other players rather than against the environment. In these games, the storyline is often shallow and not complex, but Piggy has a storyline that adds purpose to each setting. The Mimic does this as well, but it doesn't have the same type of gameplay loop as Piggy, and without the same type of gameplay loop, the Mimic becomes less replayable. The most recent chapters have also shown improvements in the horror of the game, which makes me lean towards Piggy. While Piggy may not be the scariest of these games, it's the most replayable game in this group of nominees, and with its replayability, has won my vote. Thanks for watching. I worked really hard on this video and tried to get it out as soon as I could. So feel free to share your thoughts and your preferred vote. Please don't harass people because you have different opinions and viewpoints on each nominee, and learn to agree with your disagreements. Let me know who wins this category after it's all done with, because the drama is going to be absolutely nuclear.